On this week's episode, we are going to discuss and break down the Lakers' first round series against the Houston Rockets. Here we go. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Matter of Stats podcast. I am your host, Anthony, as always. And if you are new to the show, please hit that subscribe button. It helps us grow our channel, and we really appreciate the support. All right, let's jump right in. So on this program last week, we discussed the possible scenarios for the Lakers heading into the end of the regular season, what their possible playoff matchups may or may not have looked like, sort of dissected what the odds and options were, where they would end up third, fourth, playing either the Rockets or the T-Wolves, and sort of what we felt and what I felt was maybe going to be the best matchup for them moving forward, depending on how the chips fell, if you will. So here we are. We ended the regular season on a nice little 3-game winning streak, 53 wins, better than last year. But this is the Western Conference, and the Lakers statistically had a better record than they did last season, but finished with a lower seed. Go figure, right? Last year, 3rd seed. This year, 4th seed, despite a better statistical season. It is what it is. That's the Western Conference. What can I tell you, right? That's how it is. But we did talk last week, and on paper, the Rockets were ideally the best matchup for this sort of wounded bunch of Lakers, this group of Lakers that are going to head into the postseason without Luka, without Austin Reeves, a 41-year-old LeBron, and a roster that obviously isn't constructed to win a championship, ideally doesn't have the depth and talent that you see across the board on some of these other teams as far as athleticism, wing, two-way players, size, interior defense, etc. Right? There's all kinds of excuses and flaws with this team above and beyond the injuries to Luka and Reeves, which are catastrophic to say the least. However, here we are, 4th seed in the West, home court in the first round against the Rockets, a team that the Lakers beat. If you recall, in the month of March, they had that nice 2-game trip in Houston where they won both games. Obviously, those were, with Luka and Reeves, and one of those games did not feature Sengun for the Rockets. However, the Lakers did win both of them. One of them handily, one of them was close, but they played pretty well in that series, and that was sort of the precursor for why myself and others might have felt like this was the best matchup the Lakers could get on paper, at least, because the Rockets aren't a great offensive team. They're not a great 3-point shooting team. So those are some of the areas that this Laker team struggles in. They struggle defending high athletic, high octane offensive teams. They struggle to defend the 3-point line. And the Rockets don't succeed in those areas. So the matchup breakdown of this favors the Lakers in some areas where the Rockets' areas of weakness don't counteract the Lakers' deficiencies on their end. So you're playing into the Lakers' strengths a little bit with what the Rockets can and can't do well. Now, obviously, the Rockets do have Kevin Durant, Hall of Famer, champion, and they have a deep, talented team. They have length. They have athleticism. They have perimeter defenders that can force the Lakers out of some of their offensive sets. But at least on paper, you're not having to, face a Denver Nuggets team. You're not having to face even the T-Wolves that are maybe a little more talented. Anthony Edwards, maybe a little more of a I can put a team on my back player at this point in his career than KD is at the moment. But you present obviously a whole different set of tasks because the Rockets are healthy and the Lakers are not. But you're at home and you're going to, I think, despite the fact that the ESPN experts, none of them picked the Lakers to win this series, and rightfully so. Of course, the Lakers are coming in as heavy underdogs. I do feel like this is the best matchup for the Lakers. This is the matchup we wanted. And even though it would set up a potential second round matchup against the Thunder, which is what we didn't want, however, you can't worry about that right now. You got to find a way by some miracle, by hook or crook, to somehow get out of the first round. And obviously, it's going to take a lot out of LeBron. That's the catalyst. That's the obvious mega factor here. LeBron has to be great, has to carry this team, is going to have to do a lot for this team on both ends of the floor. He's going to have to be the defensive coach. He's going to have to be the offensive scorer. He's going to have to be a facilitator at times. But I really feel like for the Lakers to be successful, it's going to, it goes without saying, it's going to take a maximum amount of effort from everybody. It can't just be LeBron. LeBron's not going to be capable at 41 years old of doing it all by himself. And I think for me, the biggest keys to this series, first, we'll start with the Lakers. Defensively, they're going to have to be physical. They're going to have to force the Rockets into contested jump shots because, as I said, they're not a good three-point shooting team. And they're going to have to trap and put a lot of pressure on Durant. They're going to have to force him out of his comfort zones, trap him higher in the key, force him to give up the ball, force him to maybe create some of those turnovers like we saw in a couple of those games in Houston, where the trapping pressure defense coming from different directions kind of discombobulated the Rockets offensively, kind of frustrated Durant, caused some unforced turnovers. So I think you're going to have to see a lot of that from the Lakers. And it's probably going to be heavily guided by Marcus Smart and Jake LaRavia. Those are the Lakers' best overall athletic defenders. You probably will see some Vando. He will obviously have to be a bit of a contributor in this at times, just on the defensive end. Despite his offensive deficiencies, the Lakers will have to lean on him from time to time to play some defense out there on KD and some of the other tall athletic wings the Rockets will have on the floor at all times. But beside the obvious defensive tendencies and strategies the Lakers will put into play, offensively, I really feel like the keys are going to be not just LeBron, and I'm not so worried about LeBron and Kennard have been great for the Lakers, the last few games of the regular season. So they're going to have to do what they're going to have to do, obviously. But to me, the key is going to come down to Smart, LaRavia, and DeAndre Ayton. Those have been some of the most inconsistent Lakers all season, particularly from the offensive end. And in order for the Lakers to miraculously have any hope in winning this series, those guys are going to have to double what they normally do in the regular season. The Lakers aren't going to be able to survive in this series if they get the typical 6 or 7 points from Smart, 4 or 5 points from LaRavia, 10 points from Ayton. They're going to have to get what they were getting a little bit in some of those late regular season games. They're going to have to get 18 out of Ayton. They're going to have to get 10 or 12 out of Smart. They're going to have to get 12 or 14 out of LaRavia, plus the 20 plus from LeBron, plus the 15 to 18 from Kennard, plus the 15 to 18 from Rui. Those guys you expect to score. But to me, the really crux of this is going to be those three. It's going to be the consistency on the offensive end of the floor out of Smart, Ayton, and LaRavia. Those guys typically were not consistent offensively all year. They didn't score a lot of points all year, especially LaRavia and Smart. Very inconsistent offensively, very inconsistent from the three. Those guys are going to have to give you double figures. All those guys are going to have to average double figures in this series for the Lakers to have any chance. I think all 5 starters are going to have to average double figures in this series. Plus, you're going to have to get some contributions somewhere, some surprise contributions. Maybe it's Bronny one night. Maybe it's Nick Smith one night. Maybe it's Jackson Hayes one night. But the Lakers are going to have to get surprise contributions from some unexpected sources at points in this series if they're going to have a chance. But the starters have to be great. They have to all average double figures, and Smart, LaRavia, Ayton have to be consistent on both ends of the floor, but they really have to provide consistent offense. The Lakers will not survive if those guys are scoring in single figures. All that being said, despite the injuries, despite the fact that nobody under the sun is picking the Lakers to win this series, the one sort of silver lining that I think about here is you've heard the phrase, and people have talked about Lakers playing with house money, right? Because no one expects them to win. I don't necessarily look at it like that. I think the Lakers are playing from a position where it does matter. It does count. It does hurt if they lose again in the first round, if they get beat in 4 or 5 games, whether it's swept or the gentleman's sweep. If they bounce early in the first round again, it is going to sting. It is going to hurt. But what I find interesting here is there's a lot of pressure on Kevin Durant, right? You think about the legacy here, think about the matchup, LeBron and KD, 2 Hall of Famers. One of them's going to go home in the first round. I get all that drama. That's great for TV and commercials and ratings and all that hype. But if the Lakers lose in the first round, I get it. They're supposed to. If the Lakers get out of the first round, all of a sudden, that's going to be a huge feather in LeBron's cap. If the Rockets get out of the first round, they're supposed to do that. They're expected to get out of the first round. They're expected to beat us. Everybody on ESPN, a lot of people on social media, all the experts, they all think we're going to lose. So, okay, big deal. However, what if they don't? What if the Rockets don't? What if they choke? What if Kevin Durant chokes? What if they fail to beat this wounded, banged up Laker team without its 2 best players, superstar MVP caliber player Luka, Austin Reeves, and a 41-year-old LeBron carries a bunch of bums to the second round? There's a lot of pressure on Kevin Durant, right? He only won where? In Golden State with Steph and a quote-unquote super team. He goes to Brooklyn, tries to be the man, creates his own new version of the super team. What happens? That thing self-destructs in a couple of years. Then he goes to Phoenix, tries it again, right? Devin Booker, Bradley Beal. What happens? Again, self-destructs in just a couple of seasons. Now, here we go. 3rd time's a charm, right? Now I'm going to force my way to the Rockets, try to create another mega team with a bunch of talent and depth and athleticism. I'm going to be the missing piece, right? That was the narrative last year when the Rockets lost. They were a really good team. They were the number 2 seed. They couldn't beat the Warriors. The narrative was, oh, they didn't have that scorer. They didn't have that ace in the hole, that guy that could get buckets late in the game to take over and help them score when the game was tight. All right, here you go. Here he is. This is what you wanted. Here's your chance. You got 2 all-stars in Durant and Sengun. You got talented wings, depth, lots of size. Jabari Smith's going to give the Lakers problems with his height and athleticism. They're not a great 3-point shooting team, but it doesn't mean you can just leave guys wide open. They got guys, Reed Shepherd. They got a couple guys that can make shots. They're going to get up and down the court. They're going to put pressure. They're going to try to attack the rim and take advantage of the Lakers' lack of athleticism on the defensive end. But at the end of the day, Kevin Durant's that guy. He's the guy that's going to have to make and take the big shots. He's the guy that's going to be asked to put the team on his back if they're not comfortably winning, if the game is close. The Lakers are a great clutch team. We all know that. They've been good in the clutch, final 5 minutes of the games all season. Rockets, not as good in that area. So it's just interesting, just simply from the perspective of Kevin Durant. So much pressure on Kevin Durant. You have to get out of this series if you're Kevin Durant, whether it takes you 6 games, 5 games, 4 games, that doesn't matter. If you're Kevin Durant, you got to get out of this series, because if you don't, then what are we talking about? Anyways, we'll see. Hopefully, the Lakers' playoff run will not be as short-lived as it was last year, regardless of the outcome. I'd love to at least see it go 6 or 7 games, at least fight, at least try. I think the mentality of this Laker team is better than it was last year. I think they're coming in with a different mindset and a different mentality. I think JJ Redick hopefully learned his lesson from last year's playoffs, last year's postseason struggles and failures, and hopefully he will amend some of those mistakes, as well as a few of the players on this roster that went through that last year as well. And like I said, maybe we'll get lucky. Maybe somebody will surprise you. Maybe you will have that Bronny James game or that Nick Smith, moment. Who knows? But I'm excited. Can't wait for this series to start. Hoping for the best. Not expecting miracles, but I am hoping for the best. And I really think it starts with game one. I think if the Lakers are going to have any chance at this series, they've got to take game one at home Saturday night. Got to put some pressure on the Rockets right out of the gate. You can't give them that sigh of relief getting the first game and kind of taking a breath like, whew, all right, we got the first one. We're not going to totally choke this. Got to take that first game. Got to put the pressure on them right out of the gate. Force them to have to win that game too, so they don't want to go home down 0-2. I think that's critical for this Laker team to have any chance in this series. Got to win game one, but we'll see what happens. And as always, we will be here to bring it to you and recap how this series goes next week. Good luck, Lakers, and we'll see you next week.
Matter of Stats Podcast.